Hey, well, welcome everyone to the fourth episode of the North Star podcast. With me, your host Andy, we've got Greg and AC, and so good we asked him back from last month. We've got Chris from BC as well. Welcome to you all. How are you all doing this week?
Doing all right. Yeah, I mean, for context for people who are listening, we are recording on a somewhat infamous day in probably the history of Canadian soccer. So, yeah.
Yeah, otherwise fine.
Absolutely. Fine. Yeah. All I can say is that no drones were used in this recording. Mm-hmm. Although I did try to get Chris to do it, to go over the AFTN, but he wouldn't have it.
I know too soon. AC's losing it. It's not going to work.
It's not too soon. It's fine.
Oh, well, all kinds of interesting things. It's nice to see you all. Nice to be back here also.
Thanks for coming back. Yeah. Okay, so let's jump straight in. What's that? So let's just jump straight into the BC talk. And Chris, congratulations on your championship. It's pretty good, hey?
Yeah, very sweet. We've never won one. We've always been we've always had an asterisk next to our Canadian championship appearances in our first year. TSS Rovers, this is in our first year in League One. We finished second in the league. We won the trophy in the little playoff that we have at the end of the league, but we won the trophy. We finished second in the league, and varsity elected not to take the championship spot, so we got that. And then last year we got pipped at the end by Highlanders in the most heartbreaking game of my entire soccer lifetime. And then they didn't join this year, so we got the spot this year. But 2 weeks ago we wrapped it all up at Rivers in Kamloops and managed to secure a win. Pretty hard-fought win, actually, against Rivers, who played us quite well. Teams are playing us quite well. And we won the championship, and we got our berth in the Canadian Championship for the men's team again for next year, which is good. I mean, I'm glad for us. It would have been cool to see Highlanders in it this year. You know, I'd like to mix it up a little bit, but we're happy to be back. Yeah, and so we've won a trophy, which is great because we've not actually won a trophy. We had the playoff victory in 2022, but this is good. And our playoffs start this week, so we have us and the Whitecaps are the only two clubs with teams in both the men's and the women's playoffs. The playoff format in League 1 BC is a semifinal and then a final, one leg affair on the semifinal, and the final day is held on August 4th. That'll be at Swangard Stadium. So we've got playoffs coming up this weekend, and they're intriguing. I have to say, like the matchups are quite intriguing. So I thought maybe I'd give you a rundown on what some of those look like and what we're looking for here.
Before you even do that, though, Chris, I want to acknowledge how heartbreaking a defeat must be if you're a Spurs fan. That still takes top spot. That's quite the feat.
Yeah, I don't own Tottenham. I own this club. You see, you can't see this is the Rovers owner's mug.
Yes, for the full experience for our listeners, there's a beautiful mug that Chris is displaying right now.
It's full of our Rovers lager. You know, we were doing this last time.
I notice AC hasn't brought any lager to the parade this week.
A stellar supremacist. It's fascinating. Like last year and this year, we finished last year on such a heartbreak. We began this year on such a heartbreak, you know, and it was the opposite. Like 2 years ago, Rovers, we beaten Valor in the Canadian Championship. We went on, got cheated out of our quarterfinal game because Josh Hurd took a dive in the box, and I'm never forgiving him for that.
Ooh, shots fired. Wow.
Been doing that for a year. And then we finished in that heartbreaking fashion. And then this year we began in a heartbreaking fashion by going out to Pacific again at the death, and then losing in penalties. But we turned it around, and both our women's team did really well this year. They made it into the playoffs, had a weak start, I would say, a tough start, and came along and made it into fourth place. So they secured the fourth and final playoff position in the women's division. And the men, we won the league. So that's it's very cool. And we've had a couple of players go pro too. Just while we're still on Rovers. So the most notable one I think is Devin O'Hay, who just announced that he's Pacific, which is great. Devin is a top guy. He's a top quality guy. He had a banger of a season in the NCAA this past year and I think he won the GNAC Player of the Year. He was on fire, and he'd missed most of 23, both our season and he struggled coming back into the SFU squad with an injury, and he lost his mom, and he's just overcome a bunch of challenges. But we're really pleased for Devin, and so he's off to play for Pacific, and we hope to see him making a difference. They need some scoring talent. He was the one that threaded the through ball to Michael Hennessy, which was a sublime. Oh,
beautiful. My God, that was such an awesome play. I was really excited to see him sign for Pacific. And I think it's such a great thing about supporting clubs at this level is that you're obviously sad to see your player move on, but you're just also like super excited for him, right? And I think that's such a beautiful thing. So,
yeah, our motto at Rovers is like, we hope to never see you again, but you're always welcome. And we've had several players come and go over the years. We've lost I think about 5 players that have gone off to play pro. So Albert Kang, he's playing in Bosnia. Gurman Sanga's now in Australia. Devin initially signed with Flint City in the USL2 and then came back and got the Pacific contract. And we've got a few others off to trial in Europe at the moment on the men's side. On the women's side, we've had one player I think trialing in Europe, but we haven't had any bites yet on the women's side. But yeah, it's the reason why we do it. So we're really pleased, and we're happy we get to see Devin play close to home. Yeah. So yeah, Rovers are on their way, and so in the playoffs we're going to be playing. The men will be playing Harborside. We host them at home. They snuck into 4th. They played us last weekend and beat us 3-0. It was our worst defeat of the season. I think I don't know. We've been very depleted. Rovers has. Not only players signing and moving on, but also injuries. A few players returning to college. Nick White, who's a stalwart defender for us, has gone back to Stanford. So we've lost a few players like that. We're going to be very, very thin, I think, on Friday. So we'll see how that goes. But the guys know that they have a chance for a double. Harborside is hungry. Billy Bagiopoulos, again, I talked about him last time. He lit the league up. I think he's won the Golden Boot. 11, 12 goals. Had a beautiful goal and an assist for Harborside against us, and took the banter really well. One of our supporters was like, "Hey Billy, why don't you save some goals for somebody else?" And he goes, "Didn't you just see? I just set up the third."
I have a lot of time for a player that can engage in banter back in mid game. So
we do too. Totally. We love that. In fact, there was a player years ago played for Rivers, Jackson Gardner. A few years ago, he went off to play in Australia, and he was so good at giving back the banter that we just followed him. Like, we're probably his biggest supporters. He's playing again in Australia now. So Harborside, we'll meet them. So that was a bit of it was a preview in the sense of we played the team. I'm thinking and hoping the game will be different. That will be a Swangard situation. So we'll be over there. And I actually don't know how that game's going to go. I wish I could say, Harborside's had they finished 4th, we finished 1st. We're a better team, but they are good, and when they're hungry, which they were, they needed to win. They played 2 games in 24 hours last weekend, which was a crime against player safety, I think.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
But they managed to secure 4th place, and so that's the first tilt, and then the second one is later in the weekend. Altitude plays Whitecaps, and again, I don't know how that's going to go. Altitude was neck and neck. The Whitecaps, Altitude, and us were kind of neck and neck all season for first place, or at least when we started slipping in form, they came up. We beat Altitude, eliminated them. We only had the Whitecaps to do, and they've finished weekly. Actually, they lost 2 of their last 3, fell to 3rd place, so they'll be visiting Altitude, which is a nice day for Altitude. They're opening. I think their admission is free to their playoff game, so they're hoping to fill the stands with folks. And that'll be interesting to see how that goes. Again, Altitude, they're a game when they play hungry, they play hungry. Who they're missing though is Marshall Harold, who broke his leg against us.
Oh, that's the player, right?
Injury, yeah. And we were just all it was horrible. You never want to see that. He's a real trooper. and we've all been messaging him and wishing him well. And he made an appearance with the club last week and big photo with the team and everything. So, but he's got about a year probably ahead. So they're missing that. They're missing him, their keeper. But I think that's going to be a really tasty match. And if I was around, I would go see that one. So that's what happens there. The winners of those two games will meet on August 4th at Swangard for the provincial League 1 final. And that's the men's side. So
home advantage.
Yeah, we've got home field advantage, and we played a final there before and won in penalties. So I have to say I'm not a fan of the playoffs, and it does feel like this. I'd rather a cup competition like you guys have in Ontario. I think that's the way to go. And it does feel like it's a different beast for the players. Like winning the league, it's not easy. Hey, this is a 12-game season. It's a really hard title to win. Yeah, and any slip in form is tough. And so when you've won it, you take your foot off the pedal a little bit. I think that's what we saw against Harborside. But I'm hoping, the guys have a lot to play for here, and I'm hoping they see the occasion and seize the opportunity to kind of like. And it's a new team also. We've gone through a transition, so we've lost a lot of our veterans. Some of our players have retired, who've been with us for quite a while. There may be one or two veterans left. Probably Eric Edwardson will show up for us. He's been a real charm for us. He's an incredible goal scorer. Players like Ivan Mejia, who had a little stint with Vancouver FC and who should be playing pro, in my opinion. He'll be back. And then we've got just a lot of young players that are just coming through our system as well. So even though this has been a transition year, we still managed to win a title, which was quite something. So we're hoping we can continue to form on.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that's the men. And then on the women's side, also really intriguing. So due to, I don't even want to know, it's just caused a lot of pain, but our teams will both be playing at the same time in different venues.
So
this is
It should be illegal.
Yeah,
it's killing us. And the supporters aren't happy about it. We had booked our date at Swangard to host Harborside on the men's side because we're hosting that team. The Whitecaps are playing on the women's side. They play at Thunderbird Stadium. They said there's commitments. I know the Whitecaps organization is, in quotes, welcoming Wrexham this weekend coming up. They've got big events happening.
Love the air quotes. Love it.
Starting. I'm just a little bit like. So our supporter group, mighty as it is, it's the only one really in League One. Actually splitting themselves between the two venues, so we do want to support both. And there'll be
good on you. That's awesome.
That's good.
Yeah, quite a few women will be at the women's game, or a few of our supporters will be at the women's game. That'll be an intriguing match again. Whitecaps have made. Okay, I take a breath, put my feet on the ground, and just say interesting things about what's going to be happening. The Whitecaps have added a few people to their roster. They've added some incredible talent, actually. And the neutral part of me doesn't blame them for this. Right. The Rovers part of me is like, fuck. Sorry.
No, I'd be exactly the same, having seen those players that have signed.
Dakota Beckett.
Yeah.
National champion with UBC, goalkeeper, former League One player with
All-Star, first team All-Star.
Right? All-Star.
No big
Morgan
deal.
McCaslin. What do you know about Morgan McCaslin? Another Whitecaps goalkeeper coming back from finishing her college career. Brianna Reed, 30-year-old veteran of Portugal, Sweden, Denmark, was 18th in the NWSL draft in 2016. Right? She's coming in for a look. Josie Longhurst, who played for Reading.
That's got to be Rian Wilkinson getting her pause.
Totally.
There,
She's
right?
a Welsh. Yeah, she's a Welsh international. Yeah, I feel that's a Rian Wilkinson get. I think that's kind of cool, though. I do think, like, Rian picking players up and sending them to the Whitecaps. Because, there's just the rest of the list. Jessica De Filippo, who played in Germany and Spain at the top level.
That's my favorite one, by the way.
Is she your favorite? Why? Why is she your favorite?
Of the 6 signings that come on. I think she has the highest ceiling. And highest likelihood of playing in the league next year. So.
She's young, right? She's still
young,
22.
You're gonna love her. Just like huge, like hold up striker, can move, smart movement. It's gonna be great.
We're not gonna love her. Yeah, not yet.
Love her when she plays for the
You're
NSL.
Gonna hate her.
Yeah, exactly.
That is correct. This is absolutely diabolical. Jordan Zip. We have an American who played. What a career she's had. She played for Santos in Brazil. She's played in Puerto Rico and Finland, as you do.
As you do.
So Whitecaps losing the name Academy for this game, or?
Yeah, like a lot of their elite?
Yeah, Joy Kimwemwe, Geneva Hernandez-Gray, Kiara Blondell, Noelle Sather, like a bunch of them have gone to school. What they're left with is 15-year-olds. They had a 14-year-old playing for them this year.
Yeah.
Right? Like Raquel Partovi, I think she's 14. She was 13 last year when they won the Interprovincials and she played in the final.
Yeah.
Like, it's ridiculous, right? So, they've got quite a few young players. So, I mean, plus they brought a player from Altitude, which to me, that's the one that bugs me the most, because Altitude was eliminated from the playoffs. Sorry, I'm just blanking on her name. But she's come over she played a game for them against Rivers in the last game. All of these players got blooded in the last game because the rule in League One is if you play a minute for the team, you can play in the playoffs.
Right.
There's no cap tying. And I do believe she was the first inter-team transfer in League One. That we haven't had that in our league yet. And so anyway, the Whitecaps are a great big vacuum. They just suck up all the talent from everywhere else. And when you look at the careers of these women and the women that play for them now, the 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds that play for them now, they all come from, top clubs, Surrey, Langley. There's, players that are trained at TSS who are in that program as well. And so that's just how they are. And that's just what they do. This is I do think what's interesting and intriguing about this game is this is their build. This is the beginning of their build for NSL. I don't know if any of these, maybe Jessica, I don't know if any of these women will make it. Josie maybe will, Jessica maybe will. But the other thing is they've got this, we talked about this last month, but they've got this crazy schedule where they have to play this final, right? And these playoffs, so they play the semifinal, the final on the 4th, then they go to Hamilton, play in the interprovincial final, which they locked up at some point in May, I think. So they're playing in the interprovincial finals, and then they go to El Salvador right after that for August 15th, I think it is, and they're playing Alianza, which is a El Salvadoran professional team. And if they win that, then they've qualified. And who do they play in their group? Like
San Diego,
Portland, San Diego, and Tigres or something.
It's going to be a bunch of 14-year-olds.
Yeah.
These 6 pros against Alex Morgan.
Yeah.
Christine Sinclair.
Yeah. Christine Sinclair.
No big deal. What a moment.
It's crazy. I really hope they win the qualification game.
Oh, they have to. Come on.
And I did hear Katie Collar talking about the fact that these women are not, even the young ones, like they've played in CONCACAF. Like this is not, some of these women are not, they're not strangers to, hot, humid, long distance travel, that kind of stuff. Right. So it's good for them. I don't know. I have no idea about Alianza. Do you know anything about Alianza?
No.
I don't know anything.
Like,
not a thing.
Does anyone? Like,
I don't know. Maybe we should get a drone and go and spy on their practice.
Oh, Chris, no.
I did have to bring it in.
Podcast.
Strategy is clearly off the table now, but maybe there's game tape we could look at.
Chris, I'm not going to jail for you or anybody, okay? So
a Canadian can never fly a drone again.
Right.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's all right. You only get a suspended sentence and a free plane ride home.
That's true. But you can never travel back to Europe again. So
Is he? Yeah, he's gonna have trouble getting into Europe, right?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Well, we'll talk more about that later.
Yeah, let's talk about that later. Anyway, I think the Whitecaps thing is kind of interesting. Now, from the Rovers' perspective, same with us. We've lost a couple. We'll have a couple of players playing their last game here for us. Because there's college commitments that are coming up. But we've still got some strong players. Devin Kavanaugh will be there. Kirsten Tynan will be there. Queen's keeper. Maddie Ma will be there, who is just here and there and everywhere, and that's our chant for her. And then she goes up to Toronto. Maddie is brilliant. We just love her to bits. There's so. We've got Jenna Baxter. She'll be with us. So we've still got our core and the cohesion and the chemistry that's been building with this women's team has been really great. So what's intriguing to me about this is, A, we're not expected to win, right? We're just not expected to beat the Whitecaps. But B, this is the Whitecaps' least interesting tournament when you think about what's coming up, right? There's no question they are hungry to compete in everything. If you played tiddlywinks with them, they would try and wipe you clean. But I think the cohesion, their last game was against Rivers. they did have an undefeated season, but they drew against Rivers 0-0. And so the cohesion and chemistry, we have the slightest chance. Let's see. So a bunch of our supporters will be going over to Thunderbird Stadium on Friday to watch that match. And I would, both of these will be broadcast. Both matches will be broadcast. So I think I'll be sitting up in a little holiday place up in Powell River with kind of 2 screens going and cheering the teams on and seeing how they do.
Can we come?
Yeah, please. We could just do it live. That would be so fun. I'll be in Ontario in October. We'll get together.
Sick. All right.
There
you go.
All right, so that's that one. And then on the other side, Burnaby and Unity, the forgotten semifinal. Burnaby playing Unity. Really no idea what to expect. Again, this league, where we are in our development, our squads get very fluid at the end of the year, especially you've got a university team. So TW, Pretty Western Spartans have claimed back some of their players. Burnaby they picked up a lot of D1 players that we had with us last year, and those players are gone. So Molly Corey has gone she's gone to San Diego, Camelia Shu, Mia Pante. So all of those players have gone off. So I have no idea how that game's going to turn out. That should be interesting. There will be a winner, but I wouldn't be putting money on it. Be very interesting to see how it goes. So it's intriguing. I mean, I think on the one hand, like in as much as on the women's side, the season's been dominated by the Whitecaps. It's very interesting to watch them now because they're changing and they're in transition and they've got a bit of a journey. Like I think actually like I say this as a neutral in the moment, but the Whitecaps' journey and their story now is really cool. And this is where it begins, really. Like the NS, and I mean all of us who are a bit choked about what they're doing to stock the roster against us are also knowing that we're going to be buying season tickets to see this team. Right?
Oh, yeah. So immediately. At
some level, it's like, let's just see what happens as they move along. And it's kind of cool to be at the beginning of that journey. So
yeah, everyone's cheering them on, and you're going to know all these players so intimately from having played against them in the past 2 years, which is really cool. That's awesome.
I think that's true too. Yeah, it's true. And there's so many of these players that'll be national team players too.
Exactly. And one of the interesting things about League 1 BC is like you'll actually see a lot of former national team players from or youth national team players from years ago pop back up, and you're like, hey, there you are. You're like, you're like a professional, whatever. Like you're a nurse, you're a doctor, whatever.
Right.
And you're just like, oh, you're still sick. Okay, good.
Yeah. And we've always had 1 or 2 of those in our side as well, just because once the Rex is done, you're done, right?
Exactly.
And in this country, we haven't had the pro league. And so you might have been on a U15 or a U17 or U20 team and, your career is over. And so what do? It's like, oh, well, League 1 comes along, you pick up with another club. So there are, there's former youth players that are sort of sprinkled out on both sides, men's and women's sides, actually, which is interesting. And the only other big news from out here, which I think is big and interesting, is we're expanding. So we've got 2 new teams coming into the league this year. Yeah, and the announcements were made just this week. So very good new clubs that are coming in. So Coquitlam Metro Ford, which is an absolute powerhouse in the lower mainland here.
What a massive team.
Big club. In fact, their men's team won the VMSL and won the interprovincial, won the provincial championship. So they'll be representing BC at the nationals. They are entering a team called Evolution FC next year. So we'll get a little trip out to Coquitlam for the Swan Guardians.
I really want to know why they went with Evolution. I'm so curious.
Oh, I'll ask them. I have no idea.
Find that out.
It may be. Maybe it's
why not stick with your brand is my question.
Well, there's actually a reason for that. Like part of that is in BC League 1, the teams don't actually stick with their brands. Like they actually build all of our teams other than us because we kind of grandfathered in because we were already playing at this level. Every other team who joined BC League 1 had to do it under a kind of unique identity. So the idea was that it was to sort of, I think, separate from the youth club system a little bit, even though that'll, these clubs will be like the Burnaby FC.
Exactly.
Well, Burnaby FC got to do it. But yeah, that's sort of the principle behind it. I mean, I think Coquitlam Metro Ford, they'll probably be called the Wolves because that's their mascot. And Langley United's the other team too. And what's interesting about Langley coming in, and they were just announced today officially, but what's interesting about Langley coming in is that's where Chelsea Hannison works. And Chelsea was our women's team coach in the first 2 years at League One, and we adore Chelsea Hannison. I mean, she can do no wrong. I don't think we'd ever cheer against Rovers, but if she was coaching a team from Langley, it would be an uncomfortable day.
Uncomfortable
for
day.
Sure. And I don't know, maybe she will. I don't have any inside information, but that's where Chelsea works. Langley, again, another great organization out in the Fraser Valley. They've turned out all kinds of great players, including Joel Waterman, who plays on the national team, who's a Langley United guy. They have some so we've had players from Langley play with us. And I think Chelsea's I just want to put like a word out for Chelsea. She's a young, incredibly skilled and talented coach. The players who played for her in the first 2 years of Rovers would run through walls. I mean, it's a cliche, but they totally would run through walls for her. They loved playing for Chelsea. They felt honored, respected, driven, challenged. She's not afraid of having the hard conversations, but she also builds an incredible culture really fast. She's an incredibly talented person. So remember the name. If you haven't heard her name, she is going places in the game. She's at the highest level, I think, at Langley United. I think she's their full-time TD now. So she couldn't coach for us this year because she got more responsibilities over at that club, so she couldn't have the summer over with us.
I love a female TD, man. Love it.
Oh,
there's not enough technical
I know.
Leadership.
And she's she's been the only woman in her Canada A licensing. She's an expert in adaptive soccer. Adaptive soccer. She works with kids with autism and neurodivergence, and she's just she's an absolute saint, and she is a pirate through and through. She just loved working with us, and we loved having her. So I just wish her the best of luck there. I hope she ends up gaffering that women's team, and it's just going to be some uncomfortable evenings as we pull on her heartstrings and divide her loyalties.
It's okay. You can get a beer with her after.
Oh, absolutely,
Right.
absolutely, yeah. So that's League One. So we're almost at the end, and interested to see who will be sending, who will be lifting the plate at Swangard. These little beautiful carved plates, carved wooden plates that are the playoff trophies, and that's where we're at. Short seasons come to an end, and we'll put our heads down and we start getting ready for next year.
And so that brings you to 9 teams in each league, right? So do you know if there's any plan to add a 10th before the start of next season, or are they going to roll with the 9, do you think?
Calm down.
I'm just...
let's do 3.
Yeah.
I like symmetry.
If he hadn't have asked the question, I was going to ask it.
Right. Well, I haven't heard, right? I had heard about these 2 teams.
Okay.
I had heard about expansion plans. I know there are other... I know there's designs around what is the league beginning to look like now? Because now we're actually starting to stretch the season. And I know the ambition is not that, I think actually League One, if I'm candid and honest, I think League One is at an actual really, really important point right now here in BC. We have a danger of becoming a PCSL, a Pacific Coast Soccer League, which is the traditional summer league that's happened here, the amateur league. Sort of short 12-game season, a kind of like what I did on my summer holiday kind of thing. The challenge over the first 3 years has been enforcing and making sure that the standards are kept up. It's a standards-based league, right? That's what makes it different.
Yes.
And if we don't hold those standards, then we're really, there's no reason for players to come and play with us. There's no reason for this to be a developmental part of the pyramid. The standards are there for the development of the players. And so I think at this point now we're, CSB just bought us as they seem to be acquiring leagues. And it's important, I think, actually, that we really double down on what this could actually look like as a league, as a full league, part of the pyramid, not a summer job, not a summer league, but something that's extended out. And then that's going to mean that we don't necessarily work with the college players in the same way.
Yeah,
right?
they're a detriment. Let's be real. To only be available for 6 weeks is what's limiting it. But those are the best players, so it's kind of tough. You got to keep people in the game for longer. That's always been the challenge. So hopefully, with the structure above it, people keep striving and they do want to be a part of it.
I hope that's that's definitely what I want to see. And I think the conversation that's starting to happen here is like with the expansion. I know there's plans for more, and the other issue is we just don't have a lot of depth of talent, right? So so it's very important for us as supporters that we keep the team, the league equitable. That's why we created the Juan de Fuca plate. Right. So in other words, that we have women's and men's teams for every club, but that's not gonna be a reality if we expand to 20 teams, to have 20 women's sides in this league playing at that level.
Right.
And the last thing we want is 15-0 blowout. Doesn't help anybody, right?
No.
Right.
So that's going to be a bridge we'll have to cross at some point as we move into our development. And so it's just a delicate moment, I think. Actually, we're 3 years in. We'll see what happens next year. I'm glad, it's going to be, I don't know. We've got these 2 new teams coming in. I haven't heard about other ones, but I know there's others in the mix. There's definitely teams that want to be in the League One setup. And there will be. We're not going to stay, we won't rest at 9. So for sure it will expand and change over the years, and we'll see how that happens. And it's just a question of, we just need to make the right decisions at the right time and grow the league in a new direction, rather than getting a little bit lazy about the standards, or and already there's places where that slips, right? And so we got to be really careful. And with every club, like including the Whitecaps, like they were playing in a public park the first 2 years, which was not acceptable. They didn't have enough. They didn't have the requisite number of seats. This is the Whitecaps, So there are standards that were put in place. They need to be enforced, and we need to adhere to them, and we need to begin to work them through. So that that's what we're all trying to do and all hoping to do. There'll be lots of shifts and changes to watch over the off season and into next year, and but what a great level to be able to be a part of, as you were saying earlier. It's just to watch these young players and be a part of their journey and get to witness them in our shirts before they go off and have a career, make an impact elsewhere, and that's part of what I really love about what we're doing.
No, that's awesome. And I promise I'll stop my my cross-examination. It isn't a congressional hearing or anything. But last question I have for you. My brain's a little bit mush today just because of the way the day's gone with all the news out there. Did you share earlier who won the combined plate for the season? Who was
the Whitecaps won it, yeah.
Okay.
We went into the last weekend with a magic number of 4, I think, or last 2 weeks with a magic number of 4, and they wrapped it up. Yeah, I mean, their women were undefeated. It was the first undefeated season in League One. They which is great. Yeah, it helps. I mean, that's the maturity. That's the maturing of the 2006 crop. It's a rich team, and so they're done now, and obviously now they're stocking up with professionals. So. I don't know if there'll be a better team, to be honest, because the great thing about this team, the Whitecaps, is that they've been together for 4 years. They have built chemistry and cohesion. They know each other like, like an old pair of jeans. And so it's not impossible that we could get a result.
No, they're all familiar faces from the national teams, and these players, and they've been called into the senior national team. So obviously they're pretty good, but always appreciate your insight on BC.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
BC.
So that's how we're doing.
Yeah, I think we've become a BC and Ontario podcast now.
We have, definitely.
Quebec and Alberta.
Yeah, we're going to talk about BC. Okay.
Like as soon as it happened, it's like we gotta get Chris back on. Now they've won the league.
Yeah, I mean, exactly.
Yeah, they'll get the Juan de Fuca plate. I'm not sure when, but the supporters present that. It's a supporter trophy, right? It's a kind of modeled on the Cascadia Cup, and as the Whitecap supporters will present it to their teams, probably in the playoff at some point. So yeah, it's good for them. That's the club championship, and again, that's the only the A League in Australia has a trophy like that.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know they had that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
In Australia, the club championship in Australia is the men's and women's combined points totals in the A-Leagues in Australia, which is brilliant. Awesome. And they started the year after we did. So we're the oldest men's and women's club championship in a whatever standards level soccer pyramid in the world.
Trendsetters. Very nice. Very nice.
Gotcha. That's great. Well, thanks very much, Chris. And if you want to stick around while we...
I'll cross-examine you.
Absolutely, please.
Oh, no.
Free.
What have I done?
So, where do we start, Greg?
Oh.
Crimes Against Sandwiches.
Oh, no.
I plead the fifth. I have no recollection.
So we've been asked through our Twitter account to basically explain the pro-rel structure for a few people. So I don't know if you want to take the lead on it, AC, Greg, or you just want me to drone on about it.
I think it's a Greg. I think Greg takes this.
Whoa, it's a Greg thing. Why is it a Greg thing?
Yeah, it's a Greg thing now.
Oh, jeez. Okay.
I want you to explain things to me, okay, Greg?
Oh, God. Okay, well, that's unreliable, but let's dive into this a little bit. So we'll go through the different levels. We're going to focus specifically on pro-rel on the women's side because it is slightly different on both the men's and women's side here in Ontario. And as we've talked about as a group, the women's side, that's all kind of coming to a head right now, right? Because both the championship and the Premier are wrapping up, and League 2 is not far behind. Actually might be finishing up a little bit sooner, if I recall correctly. So it's all kind of coming to a head. People are starting to get really interested in how it's all going to work. And so let's take a look at it. So starting at the top, in the Premier Division, the 10th place is an automatic relegation. And we've kind of talked about the Blue Devils' struggles this year. They are very much confirmed to be in that automatic place. Because they're in 10th, for next year they'll drop down to the championship level. 9th place in the Premier League will go into a playoff. And we'll kind of talk about how that playoff will work by looking at the championship next. So at the championship level, first place is automatically promoted to the Premier. They'll take the place of the Blue Devils in the Premier League. And the second place team in the championship level will be in that playoff against 9th place from the Premier League. So lots to still be determined at the championship level. There are lots of teams vying actually for both of those places. And there's still a little bit to be decided at the Premier level as well for that 9th place. So really the Blue Devils are the only team I think that's confirmed to be part of that whole swap. And all those other places are yet to be determined. Wrapping up the championship level, 10th place is also going to be automatically relegated to League 2. And to determine who will take their place from that League 2 level, there's still some of those details up in the air. It's my understanding. The way that it will work, League 2 in the women's level is split into two main conferences, the Southwest and the Northeast. The top two teams from each conference will go into a playoff between all four teams. I'm not exactly sure how the format is going to look, but whoever comes out of that playoff victorious will take the place in championship to replace whatever team is relegated. I think right now it's looking like in the relegation spots it could be Tecumseh, Rush, or Burlington. There's still a little bit left to be decided there. But we can kind of jump into, now that we have a picture of what the structure looks like, maybe let's talk about the teams involved. Does anybody want to take the lead on that, or do we want me to continue?
I don't want to talk about it.
Okay, right. This is a sensitive subject for Andy, so yes, I'll spare him.
I'm as nervous as a kitten, and I'm not going to lie to you because this just is not good for me.
Well, I mean, Chris and I were talking before we started, and Chris is pretty confident that you're going to come out of it fine. So I think that we're feeling good about the Rovers' chances. But
you're higher than you were when we talked last time. So I feel like
absolutely. But honestly. The problem is, and these girls are fantastic. They played a great game against Alliance last weekend, but we're so decimated. It's ridiculous. We've lost that many players. It's just bad.
Yeah, it's going to be a little bit of a struggle in the run-in for that team. So let's look at the way the rest of the table shapes up. In the Premier Division, we have NDC already confirmed as the league winners. So had a really excellent season. We're strong from pretty much start to finish. I don't think they have
undefeated.
Yeah, right. They are undefeated. They did drop some points, but not haven't lost yet, and they're running out of chances to lose. So really strong season from them. 43 points, 14 out of 15 wins, 42 goals for, 11 goals against. Just really solid.
Respect.
Have to give the respect where it's due. As we mentioned earlier in the Premier Division, Blue Devils have officially been relegated. They are on the complete opposite end of the spectrum in that they haven't won a game yet, and the goal differential is not flattering. But vying for that ninth place, trying to avoid that ninth place, really, I should say, so that you're not drawn into a relegation promotion playoff. Right now, the team sitting in that spot is North Miss. So North Mississauga, they're likely to be the team to finish in ninth, just based on the way the table looks. They currently have 13 points, and both Guelph and Simcoe County are at 18. Should be safe. There's only 2 games left.
If we tie or win, then it's North Miss.
Yeah, it's in your control. That's great.
Oh, absolutely it is, and we're at home, which is good.
Definitely, and you've had some really strong home crowds lately, so hopefully that can propel you. This is kind of the nice thing about the double-edged sword, the two sides of the coin with promotion and relegation is these games become so important, and they're another way to galvanize your supporters, right? So hopefully
Absolutely.
The Simcoe fans show up huge and get behind the team, because I think that has been really impressive to see so far, and hopefully it continues.
We were talking about that, actually. Kirsten Tynan and I were having a conversation about how many came out to the Cup game, and just the 650 or something out to that one, I think you had. And so it was like
there was we don't take an attendance, but there was at least 650, 700 there.
Yeah, and that's what she was saying for our semifinals. Like, we're not gonna have those kind of numbers, and she's like, "That's what we need, though. We need to get those kinds of numbers out." And so, what are they doing that they're doing so well? So, made waves across the country. So, despite it all, having that supports. Yeah. Oh yeah, and it makes a big difference. It looks great. Yeah, the other Rovers looks great.
Yeah, we got a lot of there's a few players that we're tied in obviously with Barry Soccer Club, but I know like Chloe, Kayla, Uddenberg, they help out with Aurora as well. So a lot of the Aurora kids come out to support
as well.
You guys are
institutions in Aurora. Like the whole family needs a shrine.
Oh,
I don't know what they're
unbelievable!
Yeah, love it.
Well, moving on to the other divisions, it gets a little bit more tense, a little bit more left to play for, and a little bit less decided so far. In the championship division, promotion is kind of anybody's guess. Waterloo is currently sitting in pole position. They have 29 points, and they do have a game in hand on their closest competitors, their closest rivals. But it is tight because Hamilton is also on 29 points. They're currently on a 4-game winning streak, and they're looking really strong to close out the season. And Scrosby is also not very far behind at 28 points, but they have a little bit of a dip in form. They recently lost to Hamilton, so teams are taking points off each other at the top. And even the two teams closest to the top 3 are not far behind. So Pickering's pretty close. Unionville's also pretty close. There's a lot to be decided there. Neither the automatic promotion nor the playoff spot are completely locked in yet. So these last 2 weeks, the run-in is going to be really interesting to watch. On the relegation side, though, those teams that I mentioned that are kind of embroiled in it, Tecumseh, Rush, and Burlington. Tecumseh on 10 points, Rush on 10, but they also play Burlington and Tecumseh still, so they have a lot of opportunity there to decide their own destiny. And Burlington's slightly ahead of those two with 12 points. So lots still up in the air. It's going to be really fun to see how that all shakes out. And it's also been, I think we've mentioned this on previous episodes, all of those teams have kind of had their day or have had their moments where they've come back to life and they've taken some points off teams above them. They've surprised some teams. So it'll be interesting to see when they're playing for their lives in this division, kind of how it all shakes out. It's really fortuitous that the end of the schedule has them all playing against each other. So we can see some really direct competition, if you will.
Absolutely.
And for League 2, again, a lot up in the air still, but in the Northeast Division, Alliance and Vaughan are pretty much guaranteed, I think, to move on in those two places, grab those two playoff spots. And in the Southeast, Hamilton is on 22 points with 3 games left, and Waterloo on 20 points with 2 games left. So not moving along at quite the pace that Alliance and Vaughan are. They're both on 30 points in that Northeast division, but still Hamilton and Waterloo very strong in the Southeast. But Rush isn't that far behind them. They're on 19 points with 1 game left, and Scrisoppi is also on 17 points but has 4 games left. So they have lots of games in hand on the teams above them, on Hamilton, Waterloo, and Rush. So lots still to be decided there.
Here's the kicker on this, though, guys, is Hamilton, Waterloo, Rush, and Scrisoppi are all in League 1 Championship.
Andy,
so they can't be promoted.
So glad you mentioned that, because that is the wrinkle in the situation, right? So basically the rule is that you can't have 2 teams from the same organization in the same division. So really, whatever happens at the top end of the championship is also going to have a huge impact on the top end of League 2, because as you point out, a lot of the teams that are involved in the promotion race in both those divisions happen to be from the same organization. So it'll be really interesting to see how it shakes out.
Another crazy situation. You've got Rush in League 2 in the playoff spots. You've got Rush in League 1 Championship in the relegation spot.
Could swap spots. Yeah, exactly.
Help!
They just remain there.
Yeah.
Man, you're right.
Just swap the shirts, you know?
Yeah,
really.
Yeah,
I gotta imagine.
Very they have a good crop of players, but they're all at the same level.
Well, they're all at the same level, but I also have to imagine that's great for bragging rights if you're the group below, right? If you're on the second team and you're pushing to be promoted, and the quote unquote first team is struggling to stay in that division.
Oh man! If you're the B team, you're like,
imagine
fuck the A team.
Imagine the scrimmages they have, hey?
Oh my God. Tense. Very tense in those camps.
Too dangerous. They don't.
but that really is League One. That's League One's downfall. Really, there they've rushed. In my opinion, they've rushed this through to a certain degree, and nobody's sat down and thought, well, hey, hang on a minute. We've got all these teams in the championship also playing in League 2. What are we going to do now?
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, maybe it makes me a masochist a little bit, but I love it. I love the drama. It's going to be great to see. But I think there's definitely some things they're still working out, for sure.
Yeah, and I think
don't get me wrong.
There's just so many good games coming up, and with so much implications in both directions, that these games are going to be great. If it ends up being Vaughan in the final, against someone whose team might be promoted, and they're also in that game, because there's a lot of cool games left, right? So in the Prem, it's pretty much just North Miss versus Rovers is the big one. And then North Miss plays NDC in the last day, so they kind of are, they can only win one. And then if you look at the championship, Scrisoppi and Unionville are playing each other still. Hamilton and Waterloo are still playing each other. That's such a good regional derby. We need to attend that. I live in Hamilton. I'm going to check if it's in Hamilton. And then Waterloo's also playing Unionville at the top, so that's just 4 games right there that are going to be really impactful. And then in the relegation, we already talked about that. So they Rush still plays both of the other teams. And then in League 2, you kind of only have a couple interesting games left. So Vaughan is playing Alliance, so for kind of the Northeast title. I mean, bragging rights really, because they go into a playoff. And then Vaughan is playing Waterloo, so you'll see kind of the top ends of each league play each other. And so you'll see where people are at before the playoffs. So yeah, there's a lot of good games coming up.
I was thinking about that earlier. Chris, sorry, just when you were talking about having played, on the men's side, you played the team that you're going to face in the playoffs, right? You played them on the last day of the regular season. Is that right?
Who, us? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, the Rovers.
Harborside.
Yeah, sorry. So I always find those games really curious, because what do you show the other team, right? If it's already pretty much decided that you're probably going to end up against each other in a playoff, what do you show them? And do you show them something different than you're actually going to do, right? There's a lot of mind games that you can play, so I'll be curious to see if any of that happens at the League 2 level on the women's side in League 1 Ontario. We'll see.
Mm-hmm. Just a question about this though. If Rush can they be relegated into a division in which they have another team? Surely
That's a
not.
great question. They shouldn't be able to. Yeah.
I believe, but then that makes a mockery of it. Sure, the way it was, I mean, I was with a club in the UK, and the reserve team was in the gloriously named West Cheshire League. So anyone that got relegated to their relegation to the division their reserve team was in, there wasn't many, but there was some. And then that team that was in, say, League 2 was bombed out. They were gone.
Oh, gotcha.
Oh.
Well, there is sort of precedent for that, Chris, too, because
that's yeah.
Sorry,
if Rush goes down, sorry, Greg. If Rush goes down, would they stay in League 1 Championship, or would they go down and Rush reserves goes? That's ultimately a decision for the league, I would imagine. But I mean, if they don't get relegated, what's the point?
Right.
Yeah. I'm still hoping for the absolute chaotic version of that where Rush 2 is promoted and Rush A team is relegated. But to that point, Chris, it's an excellent question. And maybe one way to think through it is that on the League 2 side, Roma on the women's side, that's their A team, plays in League 2. And they don't have a B team playing in it with them, right? So I think that suggests to me that you can't have the A and B team in the same division, and so probably, like Andy's suggesting, it means that probably Rush B, Rush 2, if you want to think of it that way, is going to drop out of League 2 if and when Rush is relegated from the championship.
Interesting.
My other question that I have to ask is, you've probably got two teams in the playoffs from the southeast who are in the championship. Are they allowed to play in the playoffs on the off chance? Like, hey, you won the playoffs, but sorry, your first team lost, so you're staying down anyway.
I think you still let them win. I don't know.
Yeah.
Then the second place team goes up, right?
Yeah, that's my read on it. It would be similar to past league finals where maybe for whatever reason the team that wins the final couldn't go on to, say, play in the interprovincial final for whatever reason, but they still play out that competition, and then it just happens to be that the runner-up ends up being the representative, like Alliance were here 2 years ago, I think, when NDC won. So,
Fascinating.
I guess we'll find out.
Tune in next time.
Yeah, when we try and figure out what happened.
Unpack it all.
Wait, our heads just exploded and everything stopped existing? Okay.
Yeah.
Tune in next month for the next dramatic episode. So, what have your standout performers been this month, AC?
Okay, here we go. So for the Premiership, definitely Jade Kovacevic and Julie Bonatti, two
I've never heard those names before. Yeah, those have never come up. Oh my gosh.
Have they just appeared on the scene?
Yeah, new kids, eh? Wow.
Yeah. Nah, just the veterans. As we've been talking about all year, like the veterans are balling out. So they both scored 6 goals in their last 4 games. So shout out to them.
Insane.
I really like what Brianna Caldwell's doing with London. So she plays at McMaster. She kind of captained them to a really good season last year for the first time in a while. And she has 5 goals as a defender. So that's pretty cool. I think she might actually be playing a little bit higher up in midfield this year. But either way, 5 goals is pretty cool. It's all set pieces. She's like massive. Like, she's just getting the ball. Then we have April from the NBC. I don't know how to pronounce her last name, sorry. April L. 10 goals as a wing back. Also pretty good feat. She's just getting up there. And she's getting back, you already know. And, she's headed to South Alabama, I believe, this season. So she's gone probably as well. And then last shout-out goes to Katie Kimmins in for Vaughan, because she's just a massive center back wearing those aerials. So she's doing pretty well recently as well. And then in the championship, Abby Kramer's still the top scorer, but she's just, like, never there, so she's gone as well. And we have Sofia Cabral, another player who's going on to the NCAA, South Florida, first year. and she's been scoring left and right as well recently. 7 goals for Waterloo. Then we have Sahara Zangano from Scrisopi, 6 goals, kind of stepping up in other players' absence. Then Tegan Hanley from Pro Stars, scoring goals, kind of keeping Pro Stars relevant. They've been playing pretty relatively well. And then you always got to shout out a hat trick. So Bryn Juris from Hamilton, hat trick. Those are my players.
Big Bryn Juris fan. I love that pick.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a little bit different for the men's side. There's so many great players, and there's so many scoring phenoms in this league, it seems like, week to week. And so some of my standouts are for kind of very specific reasons. One of them in the Premiership is Jacob Carlos, who plays for Scrisopi. He's just a really slick midfielder, connects the play really well with their forwards. They obviously have a lot of talented forwards there. And I don't know if this is maybe a hot take, but I find I haven't been watching League One as much as long as you two, but I feel like it's more rare that the league develops strong midfielders. And Jacob Carlos is a really strong midfielder. So it's been fun to watch him. He had an excellent goal against the Nitros in the last game for Scrisopi, just like a really well taken, almost like first time strike from the top of the box. So big fan of his. In that same game, I am a big fan of Akeem Villius for the North Toronto Nitros. Just really pacey left back. Has also scored 1 or 2 really nice goals recently. I'm struggling to remember the goal in my brain, who that was against, but gets up and down the field, works really hard, is really well polished, and a little bit combative, which I really appreciate in a defender. So it's fun to watch him. And rounding it, the Premiership is an interesting player in Anthony Morano, who plays for Woodbridge. And what I find interesting about Anthony is that he's played 22 games, but it's across the Premiership and League 2. He's one of those players who's bouncing back and forth between the different levels, and he's got a bucket full of goals at the League 2 level, but he's had some really meaningful appearances in the Premiership. And he's just 18 years old. He's counted on to be kind of like a super sub to come off the bench and hopefully provide some goals, which he has. And it kind of speaks to, I think, what's happening in this league with some of the youth development. I think he's a great example of that. On the championship side, I really like Michael Lee for TFC. TFC is just stacked with so many goal scorers, but the thing about Michael is that he scores pretty much every week, has at least 1 goal, contributes in other ways. The games that I've seen him live, he's got a good work rate, and again is really slick with his playmaking ability. So really fun to watch him. Gershom Dupuy on Windsor has been a bright spot in a really bad season for Windsor. Maybe really bad's kind of harsh, but again, leading the division in goals, has 10 goals. He's tied with Kissy from TFC. And he also had a hat trick in maybe what was my favorite non-attended game of the season. It was a recent game between Windsor and Pickering. I wasn't there live, but I did watch it through the YouTube channel. Shout out to the League 1 YouTube channel. And just a great game. Pickering took an early lead on a really nice goal by a player whose name's escaping me, who's probably also one to watch, so I wish I would have remembered that. And then Dupuy comes back, ties it up. Pickering, that same player, takes the lead again for the home side, and then Dupuy tied it up and then got the winner in the 89th minute. So, again, nice bright spot for them. And my last player at the championship level that I wanted to give a shout-out to was Owen Dylan Holmes, who is also interesting from a youth perspective to me because he's just 16 years old, and he has played a lot of minutes for this London team. I think it's a good example of, I say a lot of minutes, but they've been spread out. So he started the season starting, and then it seems like he's had some off-the-bench appearances kind of in the middle of the season. But now he's back to starting, whether that's because players are starting to leave for school or whatnot. But what I like about Owen, first of all, the goal that he scored to win the game against Masters recently was just well taken. Right place in the box, good touch, and obviously a big goal for them to try and keep pace, win that game and then keep pace with TFC. But I just think it's another great example of the youth movement in the league, and specifically for London. London, I don't have, concrete, right at home, take it to the bank data of what their average age is week to week, but it skews young. I'm very, very, very certain of that. When you look at their lineup week in, week out, they're just a crap ton of young players, and they're playing really well. And I think it's nice to see because having followed this league a little bit over the years, London's obviously a really strong program on both sides, on the men and the women. And I think it was a real shock to see them go down to the championship for this inaugural setup. And it's really clear, from my perspective anyways, that they've taken it seriously, but also not compromised anything and maybe what their ethos is in terms of how they're going to get back to the top. They're really trusting the kids, whether it's because they have to or what. But Owen's a great example of that. So those are my bright spots.
Absolutely. Have you got any, Chris, from BC?
Well, again, I think the season's over. Billy, convincingly ran away with the golden boot, 11 goals in 12 games. I think he played 12 games. I think that's a pretty decent record. And I think that's the most we've had by a golden boot winner in either division, men or women division. So, and he's also like a guy that scores at every level. He really does. Like he scores at VIU. He scored in League One. Scored in his youth career. So he's just got such a nose for it. I'm just really, really interested to see where he goes and what happens with him over the years. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not watching other games other than the ones that we're playing in, but I will say, you were talking about like Harborside. What will they show us? Harborside had an interesting end to the year because they had 2 games in 24 hours, and if they'd won both of those games, they actually would have finished third, and so we wouldn't have played them. We would have ended up playing the Whitecaps. Actually, they would have finished above the Whitecaps, and so we would have played them. But they showed, and I think they didn't win their last game, and I think what happened was they kind of like burned out their talent a little bit. But they've got a couple of. I'm just gonna. It's funny that we'd be talking about like the fourth place team in the league, but I think they sort of showed some fight towards the end of the year. They've got a couple like Suka Bahari, who scored 2 goals in our game. I'm just looking at the stats. Suka, he was number 7. He took a bit of a battering from us as well, and Cam Shaw, who's their number 5. And so they had these kind of 3 players that were really causing a lot of problems for us as we were going forward. On the women's side, they've all gone. So I named them earlier, but the Kira Blendells and the Geneva Hernandez Grays and those guys that have disappeared from the Whitecaps. I think the other player, if I'm sort of like looking away from Rovers, but Shania Dinza, who played for Burnaby this year, she played for us last year. She's been tearing it up. I don't know if she's in the Golden Boot running for Burnaby. I'll have a look at it, see what we can see. But she's been scoring bagfuls of goals, 6 goals, so that's not bad. Kira had 10 before she left. Shania had 6, so she's the top goal scorer outside of the Whitecaps program. The top 5 goal scorers in the league were all from the Whitecaps, and a lot of other teams, they were either spreading the goals around or just not scoring a lot of goals. But Shania was really putting numbers up. So that was another good performance from her. So I'm curious to see who's going to shine in the playoffs. It's always, it's 2 rounds, single legs. Somebody could become a hero in the next 2 games, in the next 2 weeks. So we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, for sure. And you've touched on it and I've touched on it. The next storyline we've got, really, as AC's so nicely put it, the great NCAA exodus. And how most of the teams in League One are looking completely different. I know we are absolutely decimated by it, which to me makes a complete mockery of the whole youth minutes thing, but I will let you take the ball and run with it, AC, on that one.
Yeah, I mean, it's just such a difference how teams look at certain parts of the season. Not even necessarily the beginning either. It's funny, it's like the beginning and the end. And so it'll be really interesting to see how these like veteran heavy teams do. And then anyone else who does well is going to be kind of based on their youth development. If they have good players coming through that are available, that are, you know, in high school or whatever, or at least go to university close by. But I mean, that's why ideally, long term, you want all these players staying in Canada, you know, playing pro and getting their youth sports, like not necessarily even playing for youth sports, but getting a Canadian degree. So yeah, that's the long term vision. But yeah, definitely things are looking a lot different. And so the U23 rules kind of becoming even more interesting in this context, right? So if anything, it should be over 23 because those players are going to be around for you the whole season, right? So it's it's become relevant recently with Jesse Marsh's comments, obviously as well. So but that's the NCAA exodus. I'm sure we're all familiar.
Yeah, and the league actually put out the minutes that most people have played, and London are way on top. They've almost doubled the amount of minutes with just over 14,500. And I believe they said to you, AC, when you reached out to them, that most of the teams are well on track to smash the minutes.
Yeah, that was the official response from their official X account. So that was really official. But yeah, no, I mean, another response that they did send later on was that, this was based on modeling and that, obviously they wouldn't have done something that damaged the league. And so, point taken for sure. Like, I don't think anyone would do something that stupid. But it's just kind of interesting how things go. But yeah, kind of who you would think would be at the top is at the top. And then I just wanted to see the complete list, but they said they weren't showing that. I was curious who was at the bottom. That's the most relevant part of this, not who's doing this really well. So
I'm more interested in who we can shame for sure, absolutely. And I also find it really funny. It's a nice, maybe a nice feather in London's cap to have. They're very close, but to have more minutes than NBC is an accomplishment, I think, because the NBC team is full of. That's all they've got is under 23s, right? So really impressive that London are outpacing them.
Yeah, but
it seems like it's a weird thing to keep. It's a weird thing to keep opaque, though, isn't it? Because it has it has actual impact on the results. Like if you don't do it, you're in trouble. So the kind of thing where it's like, oh no, everybody's fine. It's like, how do we know? Like it's not like not publishing the points table. Like it seems a bit weird.
Advocating for transparency in this day and age, Chris. My goodness.
Oh right.
Yeah.
It's 2024. I forgot.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
But on a more serious note as well, and I've spoken to a lot of our players, especially the overage ones, and what I think is severely overlooked is the mental health aspect on these so-called overage players. And I spoke with Michaela Volpe, one of our goalkeepers, who, for my mind, is one of the best we've got in the league. And she's 25. And I spoke with her and asked if it was okay for me to repeat the conversation. And she said, absolutely. And she said, I was talking to her after the London semi-final, actually. And we were just talking. We've been joking about it for a while now about how old she is, because I'm really young. and she said about next season. She said, I don't know if I'll be back. I just don't know if I've got it in me, if I can do it anymore. And that really shocked me. And it's like she's like, I come to the training and I don't know if I'm going to get a game because of my age. And she said, I was a goalie back in the day, and I know, and she knows, that goalkeepers peak a lot later in their careers than, say, a striker, a midfielder, or than any of the other positions. And to me, when you've got a 25-year-old is questioning actually continuing on in her career when it should be such an exciting time for women's soccer, I think that's just it's sad and it's wrong.
Yeah, definitely doesn't feel right.
Sorry to put a downer on it, but it's not right. And to me, I just don't get it. And I've been speaking with Michaela a lot just to make sure she's okay with me bringing up the conversation and everything, and she's. I mean, she don't get me wrong, and she said herself. She said she's coming out and she's supporting Maddie Healy, who's taken over in goal for a few games, and she's been a standout. She's had 3 starts and 2 clean sheets, which is great. But, you know, I mean, for a 25-year-old to be questioning the whole point of why is she even doing this, the league have just looked at this youth development and nobody's looking at the more serious side of it.
Yeah, I think no one's coming at it from the angle of like a 23-year-old woman. They're coming at it the angle of whatever age they're at, men. You know what I mean? Like it's yeah. I understand the decision. It makes sense to prioritize youth. I personally played with Michaela, or against Michaela. She was also in my C license course, so she's also inspiring the next like generation, and so she's a really important person to keep in the soccer system. So just the question of, you know, her not being in it is like kind of heartbreaking. So I hope she does, but definitely, I hope that things are just considered more in terms of the actual gaps that exist in this country. And who we want playing for as long as possible. Everyone over the age of 22.
Yeah,
like, it's crazy. And so I hope that, you know, there's a conversation. Or at least I hope that it doesn't affect that many people. I don't know. I understand the rule, but 40% seem drastic.
Tricky one. You know, and it sounds like in a position like her, too, like, for younger players to be trying to unseat her as a keeper. You know, like, if you take her out of the equation, or you know, you've maxed out your minutes and you know you don't have to compete with her. You know, it should be in training, but I don't have to show up in any meaningful way to compete for that spot. That's not necessarily good for the under 23 players either. Right? So there's a thing about like, I want to get a veteran's job from them. Right? And meanwhile, she could be looking forward to, you know, hopefully, you know, and at some point an NSL spot opens up, you know, there's like someone's injured or someone comes in, or she finally gets her chance, as you say, as a keeper, especially at 26 or 27, that might be the time that she's ripe to go, or goes and plays pro somewhere else as well.
Yeah. I mean, all Canadian when I played against her. So definitely someone that's in the running.
Yeah. She's a great keeper. I mean, she kept us in it against London in the semi-final. The first goal was just a really bad spin. And to me, she's one of the best in the league. But, like, I was talking with her on Instagram, and one of the things she said was, I love the community and fans and playing at this level, but I also need to consider the time going in and commitment versus playing time with the updated age restrictions and what that will look like with the coaches. It's craziness.
Yeah, there's lots of. I'm really fascinated by some of the things that you've each picked up on, and for me, it's so contradictory to be in this time where we're creating these professional leagues on both the men and women's side, and then be shutting the door to a huge selection of players that have maybe been part of pushing that to happen. It seems really contradictory, and I also really appreciate, Chris, the point about these players, because I've seen some really drastic takes online of League One should only be an under 23 league. That's all that should be allowed to play in the league. And to your point, those players won't get tested the same way that they are now by playing against 27-year-olds, 30-year-olds, some of whom have had actually pretty rich professional or semi-professional careers over in Europe and different places around the world. And they're going to come back and teach some of these players lessons either on the pitch by being against them, or maybe being part of the same club and they learn something in training. So it's just weird, and it's a terrible feeling to hear from players who've invested so much time in trying to make a go of soccer as a career or as a big part of their life, to just be forced to give up or feel like they're being forced to give up. So really sad.
25 is not old at any position.
No.
That's prime. That's not old.
Yeah.
But we're suddenly it's like, ooh, that's over the hill, right? What? 25?
Yeah.
I mean, I've brought her name up numerous times, but Michelle Plowman, she's 29 years old, and she's probably playing the best soccer of her career at the moment. And it's like, what does she do next year?
Yeah. Time will tell, I guess.
Yeah.
You know,
I don't like it.
It's not simple. I appreciate that too, AC. Like what you're saying, it's not simple. It's a fine thing to balance, and they're never going to get it right? So it's like a question of probably going back and forth and trying to figure out how to do this and that. But I think, in some ways, you think about the players that are coming who do choose to go away to go to school, and they come back, and then they've got basically 1 year of eligibility under the U23, right? So you've had your college career. Now you're finally ready to start your pro career, and you've only got 1 year in which you're going to actually make minutes, because that matters in the place where you're at. We've got players that go overseas, after, a couple of years after they finish school, and they find their legs in League One, like Delana Friesen and Maddie coming back as well. And those players are able to now go off and play pro because they've had their time in League One, which is great. And they're still young, and they, for whatever reason. So it's not simple, that's for sure. Tough one.
No, it's I don't like you say, Chris. I don't think it's ever going to be right, but I do think they need to sit back and just think about things before they start to. To Greg's point a few back, where he said that next year it's 50%. Greg.
You know what? I'm blanking, but it definitely is going up in a big increment. So I believe it'll be closer to 50%. Yeah, because they've got 40-ish now, and it'll still be going up to 50.
Right.
Yeah. Oh. I guess we'll wait and see on that one as well.
Yeah.
So let's get on to...
Funny too, because the irony is in the CPL, the rule's under 21, isn't it?
Yes.
Well, it's under 23. Is that right?
Yeah. I don't know.
21 minutes.
It's been a long day, Chris. You're making me think too much. I don't know.
I'm not 100% sure on that. Well,
we got teenagers.
Let's move on anyway, and
22-year-olds.
Let's move on.
Carry on.
From this depression to more depression and the League One Cup.
Oh, I understand the depression now. Yes,
Andy, we can't have a depressed host. Do we need to give this to Greg?
No, I'm not. Honestly, London came and they
London's
just
good.
destroyed. They didn't destroy us, but they did a job.
Yeah.
And they did really well. They played
great. AC, harsh,
they well and truly deserved a place in. What's that?
AC is just spitting some harsh truths over there, but I agree. London's a good team.
It's a good coach. It's a good group of players. They're all still there for the most part. That's helpful.
Yeah.
So
absolutely,
it's a very good team. But on the other end, North Toronto really ran up the score on Derby. Like, whoops.
Not great.
Yeah, that
9-1.
To me, that was the thing that really disappointed me the most.
Mm-hmm.
It's a cup semi-final. 99 times out of 100, you're going to beat Derby.
Mm.
You've got a stellar squad. If it's a league game, absolutely do it. I've been there when Vaughan's run 11 past Derby in the league. Do it. It's not a problem. You've got goal difference. You've got to get up there if you want to get to the championship and that. But in a cup semi-final, that's not right. Have a bit of humility.
You're sounding like those 13-0 USWNT haters.
Yeah. It does sound like that, yeah.
But that was in a group
between the teams. That's genuinely close to what the gap is in quality. Probably maybe I'll give you 7-1, but that's a very big difference.
Did Derby go on?
But Torrey can't.
Derby went on a run.
Yeah, Derby. Oof.
Yeah, Derby went on a run, and I think they're mid-table in the championship, right? So
low mid.
Yeah, I
love it.
Like I say, 99 times out of 100, you're not going to win. But honestly, 9-1 in a cup semi-final, really?
Yeah.
They were feeling good.
What is it? What is it? Yeah. But it's like, well, what does it prove?
Ask Billy Wilson.
Billy was in Scotland.
Oh, he's on vacation. All right.
He was. He was at a wedding, according to his Instagram.
Oh, okay. I love it. Yo, this guy's always on Instagram, eh? Have you guys noticed?
The Instagram sleuthing. Andy's our Instagram sleuth for sure.
Well,
What about the men?
Because it sucks.
When's the cup final?
Oh, great
31st.
question.
They moved
It's
Yeah.
the 31st.
I'm excited.
31st.
I'm excited.
Yep.
The 31st, they moved it forward.
Oh,
Tickets
so
on
North
sale.
Toronto's playing same day in the men's semifinal then.
Yes, against
Yes.
Masters, who
Which one's
are
home?
I think
North
the
Toronto.
It's Ontario Soccer Center.
final will be at the Ontario Soccer Center.
Yeah.
What about the
Um,
North Toronto one? Oh, they have to win first.
Well, the final for the men's, I imagine, would
But the
be
semis.
the semis. That's a great question because I'm not sure how the seeding
We don't
works,
know.
right? Yeah, because they would
I
play
don't
Vaughan
even
if
know
they're
if
able to
we're
get
home
past.
or away.
Right.
Okay.
If we look at the bracket, which
So they're
they've
both
run
in
with
Vaughan.
from the start, we should be away.
Okay. Oh, you guys. Yeah.
Yeah,
I hear
so
you.
North Toronto will have to get through Masters. Masters is another team that's on a bit of a run, so it'll be interesting to see if they can pull off some Derby magic and get through North Toronto and then have a date with, I guess, Vaughan. But yeah, we'll see. Lots to be decided on that side as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So we look at the other leagues now, and League 1 Alberta was ridiculously tight. With Edmonton Scottish won it despite getting tanked 5-0 on the last day of the season. But there was 2 points between first and fourth,
Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah.
which is pretty crazy. And then on the women's side, Calgary Blizzard won it. And then just running through them quickly, in Quebec, Laval, who were the champions in 22, they're on 33 points in the Quebec men's, and last year's champions are 10 points behind them with one game in hand. So it's not as tight as you'd think. But in Group A in the women's, Montreal Academy's been on a slippy slide, AC.
Yeah, because everyone's gone.
Yeah,
Is this a
exactly.
thing? Have we talked about this thing? Huh.
Yeah, no,
How
but you gotta
Maybe
give
we should.
credit to
Maybe we
Blainville
should
as well.
discuss it.
Yeah, I think you got it.
Absolutely.
We got to credit Blainville, I think, because
Yeah.
I think they were, they're in a rebuilding year, but then now they've overtaken like the big kids or the small kids, I guess, young kids. Even though they're in a rebuild, and so I saw several of them kind of like not gloating, but like they definitely posted about it, be like, "Oh, so this is a rebuild year, huh?"
Good for them. I love it.
Yeah, and it's a good club. It's a good club. Like I genuinely thought they had a chance of becoming an NSL club. Like even just a year or so ago, I thought maybe them because they seemed very ambitious. But yeah, so that. What about Group B?
Well,
you have that
Blainville's
pulled
top of Group B on 34 with Beauport and second on 29.
Okay, gotcha.
So Blainville's kind of walking that one a little bit.
Big time.
Shout out to
We've
the
done the BC one thanks to Chris. And
yes.
go ahead.
No, I just wanted to note that it's nice to see that across the different provinces, all of the development teams and not in your case, Chris, on the women's side, because obviously the Whitecaps on the women's side were super strong, went undefeated. But by and large, the development teams and the CPL connected teams and the MLS connected teams, they're not winning their leagues, right? They're not winning their leagues and they're not running away with it. In Alberta, both the Cavalry under 21 or under 23 side and the Foothills side, which I would still count as pretty much Cavalry, they didn't run away with it. So it's nice to see. I think it speaks to the depth of talent in those leagues and of those other programs, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, same on the men's side here in BC.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Yeah.
Finished third where they wrapped everything up last year. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And,
yeah, that's good. I mean, that's what you want to see. You want that diversity, right? In the competition, you want to see different teams at the top of the table, different teams in the Canadian Championship spots, year after year, and because it, I mean, although I love that we're in it for our third year running, it does vary, right? In Ontario and Quebec, and now Alberta will have an entry, and I think it's what's that just gives players some belief that there's a chance at any team, and so when they're making their decisions about where they want to play or where they want to continue to commit to, that they're not just glory hunting, right? And that can happen, definitely we get the benefit of the talent that comes in, because of that Canadian Championship game exposure, and again on the men's side, it's probably it's way more interesting and volatile than it will be on the women's side. The interprovincial tournament is just like an internal scrimmage in some ways with the national program. But that will change because a lot of these, we'll see what happens with these teams in the future, right? As the NSL comes on, it'll be very interesting, actually to see what happens. But a team like London, that team's going to be together for a while. So see where they go.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. The only other interesting thing I noticed was in the Maple Cup that we discussed briefly last time, and Saint Laurent got absolutely pumped 5-0 by Vermont Green. So my question is the standard of the USL League 2 underestimated, and should the likes of Thunder Bay Chill be invited into the Canadian Championship, maybe?
Absolutely.
I think so. Yeah. More than merrier.
Yeah, because Saint Laurent, I mean, they're not a garbage team by any stretch of the imagination, and for Vermont to run 5 past them, home or away, it's a
They must have just
solid.
played like shit. Like that feels like it shouldn't have happened. They must have just been really bad that day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was it actually a result that was it meaningful to them? Like in terms of the other competitions that they're into,
For sure. There's maple syrup on the line. There's absolutely some important stakes here, right?
That's
the
fair.
most important.
It's a sticky situation.
Oh no, he went there. He did it.
Yes.
Kicked off the podcast again.
Yeah. such a it's a sweet opportunity for them.
Oh no!
Sorry,
He's killing it, folks. He's killing it.
I think they should be in the competition though, and we would have said that as Rovers. When we were in USL 2, we said we should be in the Canadian Championship.
Yeah.
And the teams at that level should be there, and so we advocated for it. And I wouldn't say no now either. Yeah, I think Thunder Bay and for sure. I think those teams are. It's part of the pyramid, and they're Canadian teams and Canadian players. It'd be great if they're all in League 1, and eventually they will probably all have to come in. But yeah, absolutely, give them a berth. Expand the championship. Yeah. Let us all play for it.
Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. I don't see why we can't have the League 1 Cup. League 1, each league has their own cup competition, and instead of it being called that, it's regional qualifiers for the Canadian Championship.
Yeah,
open it up to anyone. Gives a lot of chance.
Yeah, preliminary rounds like they do with the FA Cup in England, right? I think it's that same kind of idea.
Absolutely.
Yeah, with a bit of a trophy at the end for when you've beaten your local rival and you're on your way. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, that's what they do in Scotland. They have the Scottish FA Cup qualifiers. If you win that, you get a trophy at the end of it, or you used to back when.
Mm.
That's a good idea.
Whether that's still the same thing, I don't know. And I just want to touch, just before we wrap up with what we're all going to be watching, this disaster that came out today. And
listen,
yeah, well, that's why I'm doing it now, because most people will have shut off because they're sick to death to listening to it.
Yeah. You're gonna get reprimanded by Simcoe again.
No. I've been really
That never
good ever
happened.
since I got told off about the referees. I've not had to go, even though I was given really huge chances
No, that's too
against the
close.
Lions in
Stop.
the 68th minute.
No,
You're doing it. You're doing it now. Stop.
I said nothing.
we're gonna get canceled.
No. In all seriousness, now this thing that's happened, and with the statement that Canada Soccer brought out, and everyone's questioning Bev's role in it, and was she aware, was she not? But on a League One Ontario level, what does it mean for NDC and the head coach next year?
What does it
Like,
mean
it's
for
a
the
huge
reigning
question.
coach of the year? Yeah. No, it's tough. So they actually had a big coaching change kind of at the beginning of the year. I gather they changed their model up a little bit, and so they were no longer doing volunteer coaches. I think everyone is paid now, which is, I guess, good. But yeah, Joey, I don't know. He'll probably be blacklisted. I think it will be kind of unfortunate because he is one of the most respected men in Canadian soccer, like coaches in Canadian soccer by far. Like, he's been around. He's coached many.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's kind of tough to see from that angle, because you gather, at some level, was he following instructions? I don't think he would have gone and done that on his own. So, anyways, I'll leave that there. But it's massive implications. I think even NSL is a massive implication for the NDC program. I heard a rumor that Canada Soccer was trying to convince AFC Toronto to take over that NDC program, but keep that between us four, obviously.
You realize what we're doing right now, right? This is being recorded and distributed, but just between the four of us. Yeah.
And listen, after 90 minutes, I don't want to be the person that's still listening to this.
We're in extra time now. We're in added time. It's like all kinds of crazy stuff happens in added time.
Should we stop here and wait 60 minutes and then come back and finish the podcast like Argentina and Morocco?
No.
Yeah.
No, absolutely not. But honestly, I feel like final note on the topic, it's kind of crazy. Like, it feels like a historic day for the program, which is weird.
10,000%. Yeah.
I just hope that the players are able to focus, and I hope they still have fun. You know what I mean? Like, you would really hate for this to be a burden.
At the end of the day, the players are completely innocent in all this.
No, they did not ask for drugs.
But they're the ones that's got to carry that burden around with them.
It's embarrassing for them.
Yeah, it's embarrassing.
They have a great global image. Like, we did this whole fighting for gender equity thing. We did we've just been the underdogs. Gritty, determination, resilience, integrity. And now this is the opposite of integrity. So it's really tough. But I just hope that they still have a good time and that they do well still. Yeah, what a shit situation.
Agreed.
Yeah, like I said when we were talking earlier, it was kind of a hold my beer moment.
Yeah. I had to turn off my phone. I never do that.
It's important for mental health sometimes.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Mental health is health, guys. Final message.
It is. And I wish them well too. I wish the player, the players, they get to compete. I don't know if they get points deducted or if they won't qualify or whatever it is, but to play and to show up. They've had so many. Again, we were talking earlier about the bingo card. How big a bingo card of weird situations can you put in front of our women's team before they play a big tournament? It's just ridiculous, and they're unpredictable, and they've had to deal with those and get through them. So in some ways, unfortunately, it's not their first time dealing with something weird that's out of their control in a way. But the difference here is that the optics of this is that it looks like the team, right? And that's the issue, right? And so that to me is heartbreaking. I just feel. If the coaching staff was doing something, and I don't know where it went and everything, but it wasn't Vanessa Gilles saying, "Hey, fly a drone over over the New Zealand strikers and see what you can learn about them for me, right? So, but it as opposed to like this being a backroom thing or being a labor negotiation or being, something that's definitely off pitch. This isn't an off pitch issue, and that's what we will have to wear as a country. I'm also like you guys getting texts from other countries. Australians are like, my friend in Australia is like, you spied on New Zealand? Like, the hell?
Yeah, that's
out of all the countries we're playing.
It would have been a bigger statement not to.
Yeah.
That would have been the bigger flex. Like, no, we don't need to launch a drone against New Zealand. That would have been the bigger flex. So but that's what it all looks like. So I feel gutted for them. And I just put a tweet out a couple of hours ago. Like, they just have my love and support. Like, I love watching these players play, and they're amazing, and they are great representatives of our country because they've survived in spite of all of the shit like this that goes on, and they are a great team. And they, they're pulling themselves through brambles for the last few years. And so, I like UAC, maybe they just throw their hands up and go, let's go out and have fun. And maybe we'll see something different from them. They'll have to take charge. Like, Bev's not going to be on the sideline for the first game. That could be a really rally around and like, let's play football. Let's just play. Like,
yeah.
What are we gonna
fuck
do?
it.
Yeah.
Just play.
Yeah. Fuck it. Yeah. So I hope that's what we get to see. I mean, and I
Absolutely.
love watching them in any way, but yeah, what a day.
Yeah, absolutely. All we can do is wish him well.
Yeah. Let's go, Canada.
Let's go.
So, who are we all watching, guys? Sorry, Chris, we know who you're watching.
Yeah, Chris doesn't have much choice in the coming weeks, but there's a lot going on in Ontario, and I think we're all splitting up our focus. I know that I'm going to be trying to get it to the League1 Women's Cup on July 31st, and I'm also hoping to get it to the last Vaughan Woodbridge Derby on August 4th. So those are mine.
Those sound great. I mean, definitely I'll be tuning in to the Cup. I don't know if I'll be there in person. Then, obviously, the relegation and promotion battles in the championship, I'll be keeping a close eye on via the app. Thank you to the app.
Shout out to the app.
And then I'm a
Absolutely.
Hamilton resident
Huge.
now, actually, so the Interprovincial Championship is in Hamilton, so I have no excuses. After that, definitely the Champions Cup. Let's go Whitecaps. I mean, so interesting, has implications. Like, let's see them play the Thorns. That's my goal. And then
Imagine.
the U20 World Cup is also at the end of August, but we'll speak before then.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I will say,
got-
obviously, I'm watching my Rovers playing and watching that through. But I'm going to watch the Cup final there in Ontario, the Women's Cup final, because as I mentioned last time, Charlotte Cromack is a London player.
Yes.
Daughter of Willie Cromack, who is one of our coaches, a legendary Rovers coach for 4 seasons. We love Willie, former One Soccer commentator too. He's just a great guy. If you ever get a chance to meet him, just go up and say hi. He's a great guy to hang out with. So I'll see what Charlotte can do against North Toronto. I'll be really curious to see that. And then, following the Whitecaps' journey, hopefully we knock them out of the playoffs so they have lots of time to focus for the interprovincials. That will be the
That's
gift
your
that we
service.
give them.
Thank you.
Do
That's our
it.
service to the country. Yeah, be well for what you have to do on behalf of all of us.
Love it.
So bow out at this stage. We'll see. I may be even more excited when we meet again. There we go.
Yeah.
What are you, Andy?
I don't know whether I'm gonna go to London for the last women's match or I'm just gonna stay closer to home and go to our men's match against Hamilton. But before that, I'm gonna be pacing up and down the sidelines with a scoreboard remote control in my hand, watching us play North Miss on Saturday, and it's not going to be fun. But wherever I go, whether I go to Hamilton or London, I'm going to drop this in because I know Greg loves this stat. It will be ground 184 for me.
Oh no!
184,
Alliance last week was 183.
Ludicrous.
That's great.
Ludicrous.
That's your life list, is it? Lifetime?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No North American.
First ever ground was Anfield.
Oh, no. Yeah.
You're like 4.
Oh, man. I hope you get it to
First
London.
ever ground was first ground was Anfield. Last ground was Centennial College.
Love that.
Yo, Centennial College sucks.
No, that's Howard Ground. That's Centennial College is the creme de la creme.
No,
honestly,
it's tiny. It's actually not a soccer field. It's
you know what?
too
You know what?
small.
I could not believe. Yeah, I could not believe that you have to pay for parking.
It's disgusting. It's like $6.75 or some shit too. Like it's not okay.
Welcome to
$6.50.
Toronto, friends. Welcome to Toronto, and welcome to
Come
colleges and
on.
universities. This is how we get the monies.
We're paying for their like flood protection efforts. It's fine.
Oh, you're gonna have to pay a lot more. Trust me. People I talk to in the city have not having a good time. Not having a good time. You moved to the Hammer at the right time.
Oh,
Yeah.
well. Anyway, whatever it is, we'll all be back in a month, and we'll tell you all about it, I guess. And we'll know more on the shake-up for the playoffs and everything, and hopefully Chris will be dancing in the streets of TSS.
Always.
Keep our fingers crossed.
So,
Yeah. Let's go for a double or a
so
triple.
just give a shout out to our Twitter account, North Star Pod. Yeah, give a shout to our Twitter account, North Star Pod, as in NTH, not North. And you can email us with anything at northstarpodcast2024@gmail.com. And thanks very much, guys. It's been fun again.
Thanks so
Awesome.
much.
See you soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah. And shout out to AC's puppy as well.
Several appearances. She was like, "Why are you in the basement?"
Yeah.
See you guys.
And record.